Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be discussing the impact of COVID-19 on supply chains. This presentation will be with me, Brooke, Burkes, Amanda, Isha, and Bobby. Our agenda today will consist of Amanda overviewing the logistics issue of COVID-19 on supply chains. I'll then follow up with the importance of the problem, and Aisha will follow up on the relevant supply chain management concepts. Lastly, Bobby will discuss the potential solutions we have to aid the problem.
So let's start with discussing the impact that COVID-19 had. As worldwide shutdowns and quarantines began in March of 2020, supply chains experienced labor shortages and transportation issues. With people stuck at home, there was a shortage of in-person laborers as well as stricter requirements that increased the cost of in-person labor, such as physical spacing and personal protective equipment requirements. Additionally, travel and transportation bans and regulations increased the costs of logistics and transportation as well as increasing transportation delays. Along with these supply issues was a fluctuation in demand. It kind of depends on the industry if the demand went up or down. For example, the automotive industry experienced lower demand, but on the other hand, consumer goods experienced a massive increase in demand as people were trying to stock up on items. Companies were unable to overcome their supply chain issues to meet this demand, creating mass shortages. As companies tried to adapt to the troubles brought on by COVID, a survey showed the changes that many supply chain leaders made in their companies. Over 60% moved to e commerce, which allowed them to reach those stuck at home, and over 50% renegotiated contracts with their suppliers. Slightly less than 30% said that they found alternate sourcing and experienced supply chain issues. These massive supply chain troubles shifted the focus of supply chain leaders. People began to realize the importance of a resilient and sustainable supply chain that will be able to withstand unique circumstances like COVID. Companies are now placing more of an importance on a good supply chain, with 60% of executives saying that the pandemic increased their supply chain's strategic importance. This includes investing in technology such as AI and robotics and more worker trainings. They hope that by doing this, they can bring cost reductions, better decision making, and more standardization to overall streamline their supply chain. There also was a shift from linear supply chains to a more integrated network to increase their adaptability. A survey highlighted the new strategic priorities for supply chain leaders for the next 3 years. At the top is increasing visibility, which is being able to see where items are in the supply chain in real time. Next is increased efficiency, and then there was retraining workforce, managing costs, and increasing resiliency for future situations, which are kind of all the things I mentioned on the previous slide.
So now we're going to be discussing why this problem is so significant. It was actually found that there was a 100% increase in manufacturing job openings since the pandemic. There was also an increase in consumer demand. I'm sure we all remember items like toilet paper not being able to be purchased in stores, leaving all of our needs unmet. Some other reasons this problem needs to be addressed is because there were port and border restrictions that disrupted global trade, there was unexpected shutdowns and supply closures, and lastly, there were workforce constraints from new safety protocols. That now leads us to the question why supply chain resilience is now critical. Between the disruptions, the delays in delivery, and the lost revenue, this was ultimately a strategic wake up call for most businesses, leading them to strategic supply chain pivots. These pivots include AI, automation, and new networks. You and many other businesses are probably wondering what are the risks of not adapting? Well, the first risk is going to be extreme financial loss, followed up by operational disruptions within the supply chain. Another risk of not adapting is customer frustrations. This comes from not only the delays in delivery, but lost shipping as well. Now, the last risk of not adapting, along with many others, are the competitive disadvantage. This can come from things like technologies and many other things.
Now we're going to get into the impact of COVID-19 on supply chains and how that connects with our course and course topics. The first one being the bullwhip effect. So the pandemic triggered panic buying, which led to inflated orders from retailers and amplified demand upstream. This caused overproduction and inventory issues, an example being the bullwhip effect. It highlights the need for better demand visibility and communication across the supply chain. Now we're going to get into how the pandemic connects to the total cost of ownership as said in our coursework. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed major flaws in low-cost global sourcing strategies. A lot of companies that prioritized the cheapest suppliers found themselves to be vulnerable to delays, shortages, and even disruptions. As a result, there's been a major shift towards evaluating the total cost of ownership, which includes not just the price, but also the lead time, reliability, risk, and flexibility. Now we're going to get into the connection to the just-in-time theory. So many companies' inventory management systems were built around the lean principles and just-in-time strategies, which proved really risky to be during a global disruption. The inability to maintain adequate safety stock, which caused stockouts of essential goods, which shows the importance of balancing inventory, holding costs with service levels, a central topic in our inventory management lessons.
All right, howdy. My name is Bobby McAlexander, and I'll be talking about the proposed solutions and ideas for the logistic challenges amidst the COVID 19 pandemic. So, first, we have enhancing supply chain resilience. So, during the COVID 19 pandemic, the weakness was exposed in the global supply chains, making resilience a priority. Businesses should diversify their suppliers as well to avoid over reliance on a single source. Contingency planning is crucial to ensure smooth operations during disruptions, as well as real-time tracking and AI-driven analytics to help improve visibility and proactive decision making. So, an example of this would be that companies have now started focusing on regional sourcing to reduce dependency on long distance shipping. All right, next we've got optimizing logistics networks. So, logistics disruptions during the pandemic highlighted the need for decentralized warehousing. So, by using advanced route optimization, this would reduce shipping delays and improve delivery efficiency, as well as dynamic inventory management to ensure balance between demand fluctuations and supply. Real time tracking would increase transparency and would help to avoid bottlenecks in transportation. So, like an example of this would be e commerce companies have expanded micro fulfillment centers near major cities for faster deliveries. All right, and finally, strengthening public private collaborations. So, the pandemic really reinforced the importance of government and private sector collaboration, as well as flexible trade policies that can help businesses adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Emergency logistics frameworks to ensure efficient crisis response strategies, and investing in infrastructure such as ports, highways, and warehouses to help support long term supply chain improvements. So, like through the pandemic and after, we've seen that countries have eased import and export restrictions to enable faster movement of essential goods. So, the key takeaway here is that strong collaborations between public and private entities create a resilient global supply chain.
In conclusion, COVID 19 increased the importance of a resilient supply chain and made that something companies want to invest in and prioritize. With all the changes that have been implemented since COVID started in March of 2020, do we think we are ready for the next global disruption? This is something every company should consider. Thank you.